Welcome to Full Bloom, the award-winning show that celebrates life. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian. In 2010, Aquila Polonica, a publisher that specializes in the Polish experience in World War II, published a book, a novel, titled Maps and Shadows. The story, lovingly and fiercely told by author jopeck, draws on the little-known chapter of the war, the brutal Soviet deportation of 1.5 million Polish civilians to forced labor camps in Siberia. 2 of those 1.5 million people are with us tonight. I'm honored to introduce you to brother and sister Henry Jopeck and his sister Helen Zasada. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, Maps and Shadows, as I understand, because I have spoken with the author, Krisha, is perhaps best called a fictional biography because so much of the story is true. Now, I know that the story opens in 1939, and I want to get a basic idea of what things were like then. So, Helen, how old were you, and what was your world like then?
I was 15 and getting ready to go to high school. I was a little late because I was in grammar school longer because they were going to open high school in our town, so I wouldn't have to board. So I was
worth waiting for.
But the life was very peaceful, very, very pleasant. It was a rural area with farmers who were doing good farming, and actually this is called osada, and our parents, our fathers, there were 48 of them living on the osada, were the volunteers of 1920 war with Bolsheviks.
Oh, I see. So your father was a veteran
yes,
of the Bolshevik war.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they were awarded a piece of land and started from nothing, and actually came quite well, did quite well. And I was going to go to university because father had enough to educate us, and he valued education. And it was actually very pleasant.
It sounds very much like I would expect today. A young girl, 15, living at home, you getting ready to go to a local high school so you don't have to go away to school. You have plans for college. You have girlfriends and you have chores, I'm sure, to do. Just nothing that's out of the norm. Henry, how old were you then in that period? This is before the Russian soldiers came. How old were you, and how would you describe your life then?
I was 12. I was born February 19, so I was just over 12, maybe 12, close to 12 and a half by the time the war started. The same as Helen said, was very pleasant, very peaceful. We had a farm, we had horses, we had cows, we had pigs. We lived what you would consider a fairly well life, and we even had a cooperative in which our father managed in our osada, which is a village, and everything seemed to be all right. And suddenly
And I was just going to say
the work broke out and everything went to pieces.
Now, I want you to, if you can, tell me about that night that the Russian soldiers came to the door?
That wasn't until 1940, February 10, 1940, when the Russian soldiers knocked at the door in the middle of the night, not the middle of the night, maybe about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
But there have been times during that period where you thought they might come, wasn't there?
Well, we were always scared. We always had the carriage ready to escape to the forest, because at that time we were afraid not so much of Russians, but we were afraid of Ukrainians, who were, when the Russians came, Germans, they were practically took over from Russians, and we were afraid that we, like so many others, they were basically cut their throats up.
Okay, so what a way to live. So you have this fear that you live with. I mean, your children, you have this fear you live with for almost a year, but one night they do show up. And
they finally showed up. They knocked at the door. There was 4 or 5 of them. It was a bayonets drawn. They took my father. They tied him to the leg of the table with a face to the wall, and they gave my mother 45 minutes to pack our belongings. And they even suggested that you may want to pack some warm clothing, because where you're going, there may be cold at that time.
And in that packing, Helen, let me come to you for a minute. I remember reading in the book that the soldiers said to your mother to pack useful things. And she took a down quilt and some warm clothing, some dried meat. What else do you remember that night of packing?
Excuse me. Well, he said to take food for 6 weeks and clothes and whatever. Fortunately, people who came to arrest us were, especially the Russian officer, was very sympathetic, and my mother panicked, and she just was like disabled. She couldn't do anything, so he followed me and he says, take this, take this, take this. But sometimes when I looked at something and hesitated whether to take it or not, and he says, take it, take it. And because once I said, we had some grain, I guess it was wheat or something else, and I tried to figure it out how much I should take for 6 weeks, and he said, pour everything.
Well, you know, it's good that in such a horrible situation, but as you said, at least he was a more sympathetic person. Because
this man was definitely more sympathetic than the other soldiers. Had nothing to do. They were just standing and watching, so nobody will escape, or my father will not try to escape. And there is one thing that hit me very deeply when we kind of finished packing and time was running out. They were rushing us, get ready, get ready, get ready. And I came to our bedroom, and there was a picture of the heart of Jesus. And I knelt by that picture and said short prayer. And he was standing there, and he says, if you want to take it, take it. In Russia, people are praying also. I said, how? Oh. It was a big picture with the glass, covered with the glass. I said, it will break. And I didn't take it. It was impossible to take it. There was no thing. But whenever I tell that stories, people always say that I'm too kind for Russians. Well, people are people and they have hearts, and some of them did show sympathy, and like that officer, because when they came to us, they came little later than to other houses, and he went first to arrest another person, and her husband was already gone, probably in prison. He was an officer, and I don't know if her son was at home or not. She was a brave woman, grabbed acid, but not some kind of liquid, and drunk, and she wanted to poison herself.
Oh my gosh!
It made him very nervous, and when he came to us, he was like not sure of himself. I mean, he had a heart, but that was about all. I mean, he was guiding us to take everything that is edible, because we have things hidden in different places.
Oh.
So sometimes I hesitated. Should I dig in the snow in this place, because I knew where it was? And but then I decided, and I think I packed the most.
Do you remember if there was anything in particular that you wanted to bring that you had to leave behind, other than obviously the picture of Jesus? Is
Yes.
that the one? I think it's my grandmother had one that was a picture, and it was Jesus holding the heart like
Yes,
this.
yes.
My grandmother had that, and so. Well, Henry, let me ask you: that night, when things are being packed, was there anything that you thought, I would love to take this, but I know I can't?
I really wasn't participating very much in whatever was going on. I was basically scared what was going to happen, whether they're going to shoot my father, and that type of a thing. I really was not overly concerned of what we are taking, what we are not taking.
Okay, it's just a matter of let's stay alive.
Just a matter. But when Helen was referring to the kindness, that officer took the father's head and hanged it on a sled out there. He said, "Take this. You in Russia, you're going to look like a gentleman, like a." And we took it. And later on, we exchanged it for something in Russia, and brought maybe a pound of flour for that hat that he hanged on the sled.
Oh my. Henry, what is the significance in the book about the address 44 Barber Street, Windsor, Connecticut? What is the significance of that?
When we finally arrived in Siberia, my father made sure that was our mantra, that we were supposed to remember, and my father was an optimist. I didn't really think that we'll ever get out of Russia, but my father was always an optimist. He said, if any one of us will come out alive, remember this address, 44 Barber Street, Wilson, Con. It was Wilson, not Windsor.
Oh.
But Wilson is a part of Windsor right now.
Oh,
it was
I see.
So we remember that, like the soldier in the army remembers his ID or the rifle number or something like that. If you are woken up at night, you know 44 Barber Street, Wilson, Con.
And what was at that address?
My uncle, who emigrated to the United States probably somewhere between 1909 and 1912, lived at that address. And my father said that if you ever get out, go there and he will take care of you.
So you had family. You knew that address would be a safe
Very
place.
valuable, yeah.